So this is the live Q&A. Thank you everybody for jumping back in. At least I think I have some of you guys. So this is where I will go through questions that everybody has to see if, I can help answer anything that we've covered so far. So I believe people can put their hands up by using the little chat section. So let's see. If somebody has a question, maybe put your hand up. Okay. Teresa, okay. Let's see here. So, okay, you had a question?
Yeah, the last one I wrote is, I'm just thinking about deprivation meditation. I used to try that and I have a hard time. I shouldn't say I've had. I have a busy brain or racing thoughts all the time. So I think usually I assign myself a task, like I'll listen to something or I'll count. But any suggestions on how to
silence the noise?
Yeah.
So yes, that is one of the things when you first start doing this meditation that you will experience. It is hard to silence our minds. It really can be. So when you go into the meditation, that's one of the reasons that sometimes it is good to have a focal point. Like, I want to know the answer to this. So like, say you're having a stressful day and you're like, how do I tackle this problem with work? You can take just a few minutes. Like I said, most of the exercises that I have for you guys are very short, because I know a lot of us are time crunched too. So being able to just take a few minutes away and relax your mind. So when you do the world's fastest meditation, I feel like I need to breathe when I say that. When you do world's fastest meditation, that does actually help relax your body and helps center you, and it helps kind of clear your energy. And that does kind of start to calm the mind down a little bit, which is why I always suggest that first, not only for that, but for keeping your energy clear. And then clearing your space also, that gives you another focal point that you have to visualize and see that happen. So starting off with those steps does actually generally help you to start clearing your mind and calming things down. And then doing the left and right eye movement exercise and start to see into your eyelids. That will actually help too, because when you do this exercise, it's very similar to when you're doing the left and right eye movement. The left right eye movement is a simple way to start accessing midbrain, which is where, all that psychic stuff kind of lies, in where we kind of utilize that portion to, we want to supercharge the midbrain so that we can access our abilities more strongly. And when you're doing that, again, another focal point. So that way, by the time you go into the deprivation meditation, you are a lot more clear than you were to start off with. That's when, if you write out, like I always tell people, writing is a form of energy too. Okay. So when you write something out, you are actually saying, here's what I want to learn. Here's my focal point. So when you go into that deprivation meditation to help you kind of keep the chaos out, have that focal point and kind of stay with that focal point. And there will still be some noise because you're getting used to it. Okay. So first few times you do it, there may be a little bit of chaos. Now, is it chaos though, is the question. When you're going into that, obviously, even though your mind is saying, I want to know how to tackle this project, what comes through in that quote unquote chaos might actually contain some of the answer to your question. Okay. So don't be afraid of some of that coming through, because that may be when, let me back this up just a little bit. When our guides try to contact us, their energy is so much higher. Their frequency is so much higher, and they're tuned so much better that when we receive their messages, a lot of times it's like, zap, you got the message. And then your mind will sit there trying to figure out exactly what you just downloaded. So when I say a download, it's kind of like, think of it like this. When you go to download a movie, okay, when you go to open a movie, say on Netflix, okay, you are essentially downloading that movie. Think about how fast you can click on that movie and it pops up on your screen. Okay. If we were to try to do that on our minds, it would take us a while. Okay. So the energy, where it works, how it works through energetic translation, downloads like this. And so when you are going into that deprivation meditation and you believe that things are, chaotic, it may be a form of your brain trying to sort through the message it just received. It might be the answer you were looking for. Okay. So I always tell people, try not to have a lot of judgment for yourself in those situations. Try to kind of relax and let things flow. Let it go and let it flow. All right, next question. Hopefully that helped.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, Lori. Lori, can you, oh, there you go.
My question goes along with hers. Like sometimes it takes me a while to clear things and prep and get into it. So when do you set your timer, and what steps do you go through? I mean, when do you do the eye movement? When do you do your world's fast meditation before you get into it? And should you set your timer maybe at
a couple minutes extra?
Yeah, because I don't want to set it after I've done all of that.
No, because then you're focused.
Yeah. So can you go through the steps?
Yes, no problem. So how I do this is I will do world's fastest meditation. Okay. And then I will clear my space. And the reason I do those two things first is because you always want to clear yourself first. When all that junk kind of falls off, then you want to clear your space. Well, you can't clear your space. A lot of people, you need that visual to be able to clear your space, right? So it's okay to do those two steps first so that you can visually, see yourself clearing your space. Then you go and shut off the lights and you sit down or lay down, however it is more comfortable. You don't want to fall asleep when you do this. You just want that's what the timer is for too, because it kind of helps snap you back out of it a little bit. So that's when it's already dark and you're in your space, then you want to focus on the left and right eye movement. Okay. Because then you're already in the space. That left eye, right eye movement. Boy, that's a tongue twister, isn't it? It is what leads you into it. Okay. So you're saying, okay, now I'm ready. I'm activating. Let's do this. And so you'll do world's fastest meditation first, clear your space second, set your timer and turn off the lights third. Okay. And then lastly, then you're doing the left and eye right movement before you jump into the deprivation meditation. Does that help?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
No problem.
I was mixing them up and it wasn't working for me. So thank you.
I could see how that could kind of get all mixed up, because, if you're just doing the happy place meditation, when you go into that, you can kind of copy the same steps, but you don't have to turn off a light. You don't have to, you can have your fluffy, smelly stuff if you want to, because it's a happy place meditation. So you want to have whatever makes you comfortable. But in that kind of a situation, you want to be able to, do the world's fastest meditation, clear your space. And then you can still use the left and right eye movement. Left and right eye movement is always good for centering and saying I'm activating, I'm supercharging my superpowers and then going into a meditation. But like I said, you don't have to set a timer for happy place meditation. So yeah, a little bit different. Okay, next question. Who do we have? Let's see. Any tips? Let's see. I have Cami. Can you describe the difference between telekinesis and teleport, such as when a spirit leaves behind a dime or a feather? Oh, good question. Oh, I love spring. So when things teleport, it's when the other side, when they're forming, because remember I told you everything is energy. The spoon is a form of energy. These lovely headphones, these are all a form of energy. And so when you are working with spirit, sometimes they do leave you physical things. It's fun. They'll leave you physical messages, and they'll do things like, who here has heard of pennies from heaven, right? So, people will drop pennies, or you find pennies, or, you'll find dimes. I am one of the lucky ones where I was haunted by somebody for a hot minute, long time ago, and they were actually dropping quarters. I was like, can you drop $100 bills? That would be great. But that so far has not happened, by the way. But no, I remember one time I was outside at my car, and all of a sudden, just out of the sky, I heard this dink, and there was a quarter that fell from the sky, and I actually witnessed it. It was crazy. So they can turn energy into physical objects. It takes them a lot of energy. And so just like we were talking about by touching objects, how you can take the energy off of an object just by reading the energy. If something like that happens, like such as a feather or a coin, and that happens to you, or you're sitting there and all of a sudden you see a feather that just somehow appeared, because that happens a lot, pick up the feather and see what you're getting from it. What does your intuition say? Read the feather, read the coin. That will give you kind of the message that was coming through from that loved one. Sometimes they're just saying, I love you. So yes, question from Vanessa.
Yeah, kind of in to like piggyback off of that question. How can you tell if you moved something unintentional, or if maybe a spirit did it? Like, I remember in high school, I was doing homework in my room, and I had a little jewelry tray that my great grandmother had given me. She was still alive. But it kind of just slowly moved off of my dresser, stayed level with the dresser, moved about a foot away from the dresser, and as if someone picked it up, and then just dropped and then shattered all over my carpet. So how do I know if somehow I did that, or if a spirit was trying to get my attention? Because at that time, it just scared the crap out of me, and I tried to ask everybody, did we have an earthquake or something? Because I was trying to rationalize.
I could see how that would kind of catch you off guard just a little bit. So the answer to that is that when you have something, an object that moves like that, first and foremost, if it's you kind of want to, first you want to do a self check and see what's your state of mind. Where are you at? Especially when we're younger, a lot of times we have a stronger energy source that we don't even recognize what we're doing. Okay. So if you were in a heightened state of mind where you were super stressed out, or you're pushing out a bunch of energy for something, that could have been you. However, what you're describing sounds like a spirit entity jumped in. Okay. So when something goes sliding off, the reason I use my sister as an example is because it's happened so many times. It happens. There's a consistent pattern. Okay. So a lot of times people that are very telekinetic, there will be a history of, I got upset, this flew off a shelf. I got upset, a cabinet flew off the wall. Yes, that can happen. Or I got upset and a ball flew into the window and broke the window. I mean, that is something that can happen when you have kind of more of a consistent history of, when you're worked up, something happens. Okay. That's how you can recognize. More chaotic. Yeah. Well, not even necessarily chaotic, just consistent patterns. There's a pattern to it. This has happened frequently to you, but if it's not something that generally happens to you, and say you were just sitting there minding your own business, and all of a sudden something flies off, that's when you want to use your other six senses, and you want to jump in and say, okay, well, who do I feel like is somebody in the room? Is something in the room? What's going on? Clear yourself, clear your space. Obviously there's probably a little fear flag that jumped up on that one, I'm assuming.
I was just doing math.
That's what I said. So it probably wasn't you, because you were doing something low key energy, so it was most likely a spirit entity that kind of jumped in and did that. So that's when you want to evaluate it. And if something's breaking things in your room, I would clear space. So, all right, next question. Kimberly, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to see if, let's say you've already kind of gone through an ascension process. Is there a way to purposely activate another ascension to kind of grow your abilities and ascend a little bit more? Or do you have to wait for that like divine timing to kick in, or is it a mixture of both?
It's actually kind of a mixture of both, because so say that you are at a level of your abilities that you're like, okay, I know I can see dead people. I know I can talk to them. I can hear them. I can see them. I can feel them. I can smell them, all those things. And you're going, okay, well, what's next? Right. So there is a part of it that sometimes it's a boost of the abilities. All of a sudden you'll notice that you can do this. It's much easier for you to now talk to them. It's much easier for you to hear, and you weren't really as strong on that side. Okay. So sometimes it's not a blaring in your face, dropping an ability on your head kind of a situation. Sometimes all of a sudden you'll realize you're getting more messages. That's when your light bulb kind of goes off and says, oh, I must be going through another step of ascension. Okay. And so you kind of get used to those and you go up. Now to answer your question in full, you can jumpstart things. Remember how I was telling you guys, like with my little selfless plug that I did at the end of class about the ascension mats? That is actually one of the reasons that I developed that, was because sometimes we kind of get to a place where we're like, okay, I'm ready, but our body is not adjusting to the frequencies. And so to help tune things, you can use tools. You can use things like singing bowls will help you tune to a higher frequency. Stones will help you kind of tune to a higher frequency. You can use, like I said, the ascension mats. I actually use my own. That will actually help you tune to a higher frequency, because the stones are a higher frequency than we are. And so we bring that into our energy space and we say, I'm accepting this energy. That is when we're literally telling the universe we want to ascend. So I'm going to start jump starting my own engine a little bit, so that your engine starts getting reared up and is like, okay, I can take this higher octane gas now. Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah, there are a lot of things that you can do. That's just kind of an example. But yeah, I mean, I have all sorts of tools. There's tuning forks, there's singing bowls. There's a lot of things that people are really drawn to. So on that level, you kind of want to see what you are drawn to. Like personally, I'm a rock girl. Love my Herkimers. That's an ascension tool. Okay. I also have a pendant that I had custom made that is a Herkimer diamond with a faceted moldavite. I don't have that on me today, so I can't show you, but that I call that psychic crack, even though that's probably completely inappropriate. Because what it does is, like, if I put that on and I have those stones that are a higher frequency than I am, and the intention behind them is actually to lift my abilities, to help things and make things a little clearer for me, a little easier for me, then that's exactly what they do. So you can use even something as simple, size doesn't always matter in these kind of situations. So yeah, so hopefully that helps.
Mhm.
Okay, next question. Do we have any hands? You guys have me for an hour, so yes, Lori.
Lately, like, I don't know, probably the last month, I've been having lots of dreams where there are lots of people in it that are strangers. I don't know anybody in the dream. It's
Okay.
weird. And sometimes it happens like when I lay down to go to sleep, then I just start seeing strangers' faces that I don't recognize. So what's going on there?
So when they are coming to you, when you're seeing those faces, is it when you're closing your eyes and you're kind of in between, like the relaxed, I'm falling asleep state and I'm not quite into my delta phase?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just when I'm
That's when
starting to relax and go to sleep. But then these dreams, I mean, there will be, like I had one the other day. It was like having like a fair. I was in a fair, in like a state fair type thing.
uh-huh.
Didn't recognize anybody. I woke up and remembered the dream and I didn't recognize anybody. I mean,
So sometimes that happens. And a lot of times it's because maybe you're supposed to be exposed to somebody else's energy that you weren't used to. Okay. A lot of times, okay, so as we're going through this process, this is actually a really good point I should bring up. As we're going through this process, and thank you for the question because it triggered this, you're going to be ascending. Okay. Part of what we're doing, this class alone is basically a tool. It's a tool to help you go through this ascension process. It's to help you build up your abilities, right? As we're going through class, most of you are going to start experiencing more. You're going to start recognizing more. Okay. Dreams might get crazier, messages might get stronger. Why? Because you're learning to enhance your abilities and you're learning to recognize things. So you're not the only one that's recognizing this. Okay. So as we're ascending, our light goes, whoo, we start being this shiny little light bulb that everybody and their brother, whether you know them or not, is going, light bulb. It's like moths to the light, right? So the goal is not to zap them, though, just throwing that out there. But what you will want to do is make sure when you go to bed, again, clear your space, clear yourself, make sure that you're in your comfort zone, because like attracts like. So if you're clear and your space is clear, guess what? High energy, you're only going to attract high energy beings, right? Now, when these abilities get more heightened, there's always a side of, there's a yin and yang to everything, right? So that yang sometimes is because they are like, oh, we can go to her. People that you don't even know or recognize will start going to you. And so what are you supposed to do with the information? Sometimes you're not. Sometimes you just don't know who this person is. Sometimes you meet somebody down the line and this person belonged to them. Okay. But you may not know it at the time. A lot of times we will have encounters that don't make sense to us. That's what that confidence log is. And that's why you want to have notes on what that is. So to help yourself with the sleep side of things, for those of you that are getting to that point where you're having visitors at nighttime, because like I said, that's the easiest time for them to connect with you because you're in a relaxed state of mind. You want to make sure that you have, for myself, do not play white noise at night. Okay. White noise does not help your conscious mind attach to anything. It actually does. It counteracts that. White noise is because there's no consistent pattern in it. Your mind will try to do this thing called matrixing, just like what we talked about when you look at clouds and your mind's like, oh, dragon, puffy teddy bear, your mind will do the same thing with white noise, and it'll start focusing in on your midbrain because your psychic abilities and your, imagination go like this. So when you're trying to fall asleep, all of a sudden your brain's like, ooh, she wants to talk to dead people. So don't use white noise. Your brain will actually send out signals that you're ready and available. If you use something like a waterfall, or you use something like I personally use, what is it? Amazon Prime has these programs where you can have it and you turn it on and it gives you that noise. Like I use thunder and lightning because surprisingly enough, that's calming for me. Yeah, I know some people are like, what? But yeah, I like thunderstorms. So I'll turn that on in the background because my mind can attach to it. My conscious mind can attach to that noise, which keeps everything else from being able to jump in. Okay. So, and it still turns on a black screen. So it's not like your TV's blaring at you. Or if you have a noise machine like rainforest noise, whatever's calming for you that helps you sleep, that your mind can attach to and still go, that's what you want. Okay. And that will help prevent people from just jumping in when you're trying to go to sleep. So, okay. Does that kind of help?
It does, except that I've used white noise, a fan, for probably 30 years because we own a boarding kennel. So when the dogs are barking at night, that's the only way that we turn on our bathroom fan just so we can sleep.
You know what a bathroom fan is?
What?
A bathroom fan. A fan is white noise.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, I've only had these strangers showing up like the last month. So that's why I'm saying, I don't know. I don't know that it's associated with that, maybe, is what I want to say.
So the whole goal behind that is mostly just to give your mind something to hold on to. Like I said, if you've used a fan that long, it is white noise for you. As you're going through the class, you're learning to recognize things more and more. Like I said, I mean, you said it's only been about the last month. Well, we've been in class for about a month.
Right. And then it's and strangers. But a lot of times there's a theme to the dream where there's a lesson. So then it'd be my spirit guides trying to teach me a lesson using a whole bunch of strange people.
Strangers. Stranger danger. No. It could be your guides working with you. So my guides work with me in my dreams all the time. Sometimes it doesn't make a lick of sense, But I always kind of keep a note like, wonder what that was. And I'll kind of jot things down. I'll either put it in my phone. A lot of times they'll throw oddball dreams at you and you're like, what is going on there? So if you can take the lesson away from it, that means that there was a distinct lesson, which means your guides were working with you.
Okay, well, that makes sense.
Which is why they were probably strangers, because if it wasn't a stranger, you'd be attaching to the person.
Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, I just like they've done it before, but usually they use like people that I know that are living, or sometimes somebody that's passed, but usually it's living people
that you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we go through our ascension, and our light bulb gets brighter, our guides are also quite aware of that too. So sometimes different activities will start happening, even with your guides that you're not necessarily accustomed to. Like say a dream that has all strangers in it, where you're accustomed to people that you're comfortable with. Okay. So they're throwing you a curveball. Remember that ascension thing? When we're going up, anybody ever climbed a steep hill? So when we're going, when our ascension, when we're ascending, which means going up, when we're ascending, this is not the easy part. This, when it smooths out, that's the easy part. Okay. So when we're going up, as we're ascending and we're going through a new kind of wave of it, you will be thrown different challenges.
Okay.
Why? Because our heart purpose here is to learn.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay. Next, let's see. I can see. Vanessa, you have another question?
You can't hear me if I don't hit unmute.
No.
So I had a question, because like you were saying how this class is kind of like helping us ascend right now.
Yes.
I told you last week about how I finally got to see my mom, and I haven't got to see her yet since she passed on.
Mm-hmm.
I'd been talking to somebody about that, and they were like, the veil's really thin around you right now. And I know about the veil and stuff, but can it be thinner around like a particular person, especially if they're going through ascension things? Is that something?
So the veil is not actually thinner. There are cycles throughout the year where there actually are times where the veil does seem to be thinner. Those are good times. However, if you are going through an ascension process, it's not that the veil is thinner around you. It's that your energy is stronger. It has ascended. You have a brighter energy. So you are able to see through the veil more easily. Okay. So they were close on how they described it, but not exactly right on target. Okay. So you will be able to see through the veil on a much more easily, or a much easier level. Quite tongue twister. So when you are starting to now see people that you haven't been able to see, it's not that veil's thinner. It's all you. Because I guarantee you, if you talk to my husband, he would not know what the veil is, if it's thinner, thicker, or anywhere in between. So yeah. Does that answer that?
It does.
Okay. All right. Next question. Yes, Rebecca.
Oops. Oh, there I am. Okay. So I had kind of an interesting thing happen this morning, and I'm wondering if maybe this could be a potential tool for me.
Okay.
So I do body work, and I don't have a lot of clients now, but because I run my school, but
yeah,
a lot of times when I have my hands underneath the neck and I have my hands in the occiput, and I'm sitting and I'm quietly and I'm working on the neck, right when I go into that holding space, usually that's when all the visuals and information comes in. And because I haven't been doing it, as much body work, the visuals come, intermittently out here. But today I was lucky enough to work on a client, and I saw a hospital bed and her father, and I saw all this beautiful green around it. And then when we talked about it afterwards, I said, yeah, this is what because I always share with her because she likes this stuff. She does all this stuff too. And she said, oh yeah, my dad's in the hospital right now. He's got prostate cancer. He's in surgery right now. And I was like, oh, well, it looks like everything's going great. I said, but I don't really need to tell you that because she also does this. So she already kind of knew. And so we kind of giggled. But what it made me think of is that, is it normal for when you're doing mediumship or working with people to touch them? Because I know sometimes people say, have an object of theirs in your hand or those types of things. But I'm like, well, what if this is another door for me where if I put my hands on people that way to gather information?
Right. So my goal is to teach people how to do that without touching anything. That's your goal by the end of the class, because you won't always be able to, or you may have clients that aren't comfortable with touch.
Yeah.
So, excuse me. So that's obviously the goal. However, when you do touch somebody, you have a stronger energetic connection that you make with them, because your energy field is coming in contact with their energy field. Okay. So when you do that, you're going to pick things up a lot faster. You're going to have, maybe stronger images, stronger connections equal stronger images, stronger, hearing, more downloads, things along those lines. So that's why I will tell people, like I said, they can bring objects to a session and, say I'm having an off day. I mean, we all have off days, no matter how much you've done this. And I am able to touch a object of theirs. Then all of a sudden I zap right in and there's the person standing there. So physical touch, because our bodies, remember I told you our bodies are a conduit. It's not just our mind's eye. Like we have an entire nervous system that sends little electric signals through our entire body, and it goes back to our brain to process, right? So that whole nervous system, your whole body is a tool. And so that's why we can use our hands to touch things. And that's why we can get more information. You could probably use your elbow to touch them too, and you're probably still going to get information. See what I mean? But we're kind of built. I mean, think about the amount of nerves that we have in our fingers and our hands. And I kind of giggle about it. I was like, well, boy, were we planned out well. I think that people were intentionally, or I think our bodies and our minds and our spirits were planned out to be able to have these sensations. We just weren't trained to have them. So when we're exposed to something like when you're doing physical touch with a client, and all of a sudden you start getting more visual messages and you share those, sharing them helps build up that resistance to self-doubt, so it's actually quite helpful to share messages when you're with somebody that you're comfortable with. And if you are doing body work with somebody, you are probably going to get more messages. 99% of the massage therapists that I've talked to pick up messages while they're working on people. Some of them are more medically intuitive because that's the department they were were trained in, where some of them are like, okay, well, I know I have abilities. And so now I'm picking up on a spirit that's in the room, or I'm picking up on a dog, or I'm picking up on a message. So I have a lot of massage therapists that I work with, and a lot of people that do physical touch, like physical therapists, and they will actually report back to me that it was this strange, I hear it all the time. It was the strangest thing, ... And it was because they got these overwhelming messages. And I'm like, those are exactly what you're supposed to be doing. That's exactly what you're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be able to access those abilities. When you're working with somebody and your intention is to heal them, guess what? Your energy is also saying, how can I help you? So you're going to pick up more than just what's going on with their body.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I love it. And I'm like, gosh, that's just so much easier than
maybe you could be the massage medium. No.
I know, that's what I was actually thinking, is like, what if it was just one hand when I met them? Is it okay if I put my hand, like maybe even for me, just maybe it could be for me because I am a body worker and I have developed that in piece through my hands. What if it was just touching their hand when they come, shaking their hand when they come in? What if the shaking the hand could be?
And you can. What I would suggest doing is asking somebody permission. Anytime that you do physical touch with somebody, you want to ask their permission. It's always, like if say you sit down with a client, okay, you have a scheduled reading and you sit down with a client and all of a sudden you're like, okay, you have this overwhelming sense that if you touch them, that your connection will be stronger, something along those lines. Just ask permission, say, I feel like my connection would be stronger if I could touch your hand. Would that be okay?
Yeah.
95% of the time it'll be okay. And some people just won't want that. And part of the reason is because there's a lot of people that are very skeptical about this.
Mhm.
Those are the sleepers. And it's very interesting to me when a sleeper comes to a reading. So obviously there may be sleepers, but they're obviously experiencing something that draws them to you. Maybe that's their version of ascension, getting out of the sleeper mode. So just remember, everybody's different. So just ask permission. And if it's a comfort zone for you to touch them, then ask if you can. Like I said, as we go through this, I will obviously suggest that you work within the energy realm to try to keep that as your focal point. Okay. Okay, Abby, you have a question?
Yes. So I am a chiropractor, and my hands-on touch, of course, is very short in terms of, say, a massage therapist compared to.
Yes.
My brain thinks analytically and logically. In other words, I'm focusing kind of medically on what their problem is.
Right.
How could I help tune myself to just listen and be intuitive? Because there are times where I let my hands move, and that's where I find stuff. But how could I help myself with that?
So it sounds like you already are helping yourself with that. It sounds like just by moving your hands to places that you're more guided to, you are actually amplifying your intuitive abilities already. When you have any kind of contact with somebody, whether it's a little tiny baby bit, I've bumped into people and gotten messages off of them inadvertently by accident, so when you have any kind of physical touch with people and you're trying to work on your abilities, the best thing I can suggest is kind of like our basic tool that we started off with in the very first class is listening. It's really just listening to those gut instincts, especially when you're on the logic side, and you're going, okay, I need to assess them medically. So your logic is on overload. So maybe you can do something where you work through the logic portion up front and give yourself just a few seconds to go deep breath. Let's see if I feel anything off of them. Okay. So that might help give you at least a little bit more structure for your left side to be happy. So you can kind of bounce both back and forth. How does that sound?
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, no problem. And good luck with it. I mean, I think that you'll start seeing more and more development as you go through it. And even just starting off with little steps. I mean, I call them little steps, but they really aren't little, because it's a big deal to start picking up information off of people. It really is. And each of those steps progressively is a big deal. I know we're kind of racing through things in the class because I say this, Lizzie, only have 11 weeks with you. But this is a lifetime of information I'm trying to cram in. So that's why I'm really happy about the Q&As and everybody being able to ask their questions. So yeah, as you develop and as you ascend more and more, just remember not to take that stuff on. Just like when anybody that works physically hands-on with people should also remember to do the same kind of clearing in between, because when you're in contact with somebody, you're in contact with their energy. So you don't want to continue carrying that with you throughout the day, right? Have you ever noticed that you worked on somebody and then the rest of your day you were like down or sad? And you couldn't quite figure out why, because you went into work in a great mood. That's what usually it is. It's like you're empathically picking up and connecting with this client, even if you're not intentionally doing it. So you're reading them whether or not you want to. So like I've taught people before that just because you don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I saw this really cute thing in a movie once that said, just because you can't see $1 million, just because you haven't seen it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, right? It's true. Just because you haven't seen something doesn't mean it's not still around you and still affecting your energy. So the more that you remember to clear yourself in between clients and clear your space, even when you're just doing, either massage or chiropractor or physical therapist or even a doctor or anyone in between, anyone in the medical field, especially because people come into you, they see you in a heightened state, an emotionally heightened state, right? So you want to make sure that that energy does not carry with you. You're like, thank you, but no thank you. So you can pick up on them, figure it out intuitively, maybe keep some side notes for yourself, see how it plays out, and then clear. Okay. Next question. Yes, Teresa.
I was just going to, I wish I would have known some of these things during my career as a nurse. I would come home completely exhausted and eat supper, go to bed. And it's like, okay, that all makes sense now. But I'm also a very touchy person. You know,
Me
if it's
too.
okay with a person, especially as a nurse, I was always calming and had that part of it. So I think I was picking things up then too.
Yeah.
That was just tagging on to that. But my question is, the white noise, I'm thinking I have tinnitus and I will have water, I will have a fan. So I don't, sometimes it's very, very loud. Sometimes I hear my heartbeat, whatever. So I don't know how to get away from the white noise, and thinking, do you have others? I used to listen to music. I used to do thunder rain, all those things.
Yes.
But I feel like I'm very busy at night when I'm sleeping. So that's probably why, because it's white noise.
The white noise. Yes, the white noise will, you know, and it was something that for a while there that people were suggesting. I still hear people suggest putting on white noise, and I'm just like, no. So, because again, your brain is going to try to attach something to it, and then you're going to start formulating, and next thing you know, your abilities are going to jump on board, and the spiral happens, and you're having crazy dreams, or you're not sleeping, or you wake up 5 times during the night, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why white noise doesn't work. The only reason, and I literally speak from experience on this, I've tried everything, you know, to be honest, it drives my husband crazy because to fall asleep, I have to have something strong enough that my brain actually connects with the words somebody's saying. So you guys are going to totally make fun of me for this, but I'll turn on something like What's in This World, or like Ancient Aliens or something, you know, Oak Island. Who's seen Oak Island? Love that show. But I'll turn on reruns, because the reruns I'm not as interested in because I've already seen them, right? So I'm not consciously watching because I'm not trying to learn something new. I've already learned something that's in this, or somebody's got a monotone voice, or it's very like, meh, you know, so I will turn on something like that. And then my husband changes it over to the thunder and lightning a lot of the times when I've already passed out. And then I can continue to sleep, because the thunder and lightning will drown out enough of it to keep them from doing this all night. So
That just made me think too about, it's there's adult bedtime stories, not like triple X adult, but just soothing bed stories at night where they have a very specific cadence and tone, and maybe I'll try that again too.
If you've heard it before, so turn on something that is
New.
not new, actually. So you can listen to it if it's new, but just expect that you're going to probably pay attention to it more. If you turn on something that you've heard a million times, like I used to, what is that movie? I can't even think of it. With Mr. Darcy. I can't think of it. Does anybody know what that movie is?
Pride and Prejudice.
Thank you. Oh. Yes, thank you, Rebecca. Pride and Prejudice. I loved that movie, but I had watched it so many times that I could turn that on at night, and it was like, it was a rerun. So my brain already knew what was going to happen. I didn't have to wait for the anticipation factor or the adrenaline, or, you know, I knew it was going to happen. So I used to turn that on because it was just background noise at that point. So anything that kind of brings you a sense of, it's calmer, you know, you don't want to turn on like a horror movie or something, but anything that brings you a sense of peace, that is calmer, that is relaxing for you, maybe something that's happy but relaxing. Those are the kind of things you turn on, and they will become background noise for you. A lot of times I would set my TV to shut itself off, but then I'd wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning with people talking to me. So that's one of the reasons we will switch it from a TV show to the thunder and lightning, so that I can actually continue to sleep at night. God bless my husband. Okay, any other questions? Let's see, do we have anybody else on here that has any questions, or in the text? Oh, the tinnitus. I didn't address the tinnitus. So a lot of times when you have tinnitus, like people that have tinnitus, I actually have a bit of it too. It can be hereditary. So So you tend to get used to having noise on so that you can, drown that out. When you go to do the deprivation meditation, try to see past that. Try to fade that into the background. It may be there, but it should also be a background noise at this point. Okay. So hopefully that helps on that one. Let's see what else. I'm going to scroll through here, these chats. Meditation. Oh, already covered that. And anybody can put their hand up if they want to, if they have a question too.
I have a question about the tinnitus while you're on it.
Yes.
Like when I'm praying, then I get ringing in my ears, especially my left ear. What is that all about?
Well, like I said, most people call it tinnitus, but a lot of times, especially if it's not consistent,
it's not. I don't have it like now. But
okay.
Like when I make a connection, especially when I'm praying.
Okay, so a lot of times we'll hear things. I will actually get ringing every once in a while. Sometimes if a spirit is trying to communicate with me and I'm just like trying to block them out, sometimes they'll literally either start ringing in my left ear or they'll shut it down. They'll literally, like all of a sudden it feels like somebody muffled me.
Yeah, I've had that happen too. Like I can't hear at all. Yeah. Okay.
Remember when we were kind of talking about signs that people get? Like when spirit's trying to communicate with you or your guides are trying to give you a signal, or, there are angels. We haven't covered all of the different types of entities yet. We will in class 9, I believe. But when you are receiving a message, a lot of times you yourself will have distinct ways that you will start recognizing them. What works for me may be different than somebody else, so like I know if I'm completely blocking somebody out and I'm not paying attention, they will do something like shut down my ear, like, or make it feel muffled, or give me ringing. Who here has ever heard of that old saying, oh, my palms are itchy, must be money coming in, I mean, as silly as that sounds, that's actually a sign. Thank you, hands, right? Thank you, guides. So a lot of times our guides are there to give us messages to bring us some peace, but they will communicate with us in a way that is more dominant for us. They will give us visuals. They will work with you in your dreams. They will, whatever your dominant skill is, your dominant ability is, that's how they want to work with you because it's easier. They don't have to spend as much energy. They can connect with you better. But sometimes they'll put a big blurring sign in your face to get your attention. I mean, how many of you have looked at the clock and seen 11:11 or 2:22 like repetitively, right? And you're like, what's the message? So those are the kind of signs that, are the more obvious ones that they will push us almost. Oh, look at your phone, look at your watch, look at the signal I'm trying to give you. Sometimes it's just to remind you you're on the right path. You're doing a good job. Even guides give attaboys sometimes. They can't really just go good job. So they'll just be like, here's an 11:11. That's for you. So a lot of times, watching out for those signs, even like what Kimberly was talking about earlier about the feathers or the coins, things like that. Those are all signs. They're trying to get your attention and they're trying to put it right in front of your face. So when those things happen, listen to what's going on. If you got the ear ringing, if you got a sign, listen to what's going on so that, or feel what's going on. You want to be able to say, I feel like ... I mean, that's going to become one of your new catchphrases, seriously. I feel like blah. So, okay, next question. Let's see. We have time for a few more. So, and I'm scrolling through people. Do we have anybody? Okay, let's see. Scrolling down. Okay, so it doesn't look like anybody else has any more questions. I'm kind of surprised and impressed. Do you guys have any questions on the things that we've covered so far? Not just today, but like, class 1, 2, safety first, any of those things. As we progress through the classes, it's like looking back at safety first when you were learning that was probably like, whoa, I learned a lot in this class, right? And then you look back at it now and you're like, wow, that's almost second nature for me. Like, I know that those are the tools I have to use. Bada bing, bada boom.
Rebecca Rebecca has a question.
Oh, I'm not seeing her hand. Sorry. I can only see half of you, I think. Okay, Rebecca, go ahead.
Sorry about that. I couldn't find the place where you click to raise the
I'm like,
virtual
where's the
hand. And so I couldn't figure
Yeah.
out how to do that.
You're like, okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I kind of came in a little late from another meeting, and you were talking about I love this part about the world's fastest meditation, and then you go into that left and right brain to access the midbrain.
Yes.
And then you were saying this is the place where we begin to access the information when we connect the two via the corpus callosum. And so I had a question around that. So I noticed that, like, when I first started doing out-of-body experiences, that I have this experience, or in a dream, I have the experience, and I always want to remember it. And then you write it down. But is that part of the midbrain? Is that the helpful component to us to also be in a place where we can kind of have like a little memory tape in our mind? Because I've been trying to train my brain to remember, like, it's like I'm an observer, like I'm having the experience, but I'm observing it to remember it so that I can then write it down and not forget all of the details. Does that make sense?
Yes. So you're observing like yourself in a dream or the state when you're in that moment.
Yes.
And so, yes, a lot of times that's actually part of learning how to control your dreams, ironically, is to become aware within the situation. So that's one of the reasons I really like connecting with guides through meditation, through the meditations, like the happy place meditation I told you about that I taught you guys. Fantastic place to be able to work within the brainwaves that you're accessing that you will remember more. Okay.
Okay.
So you can contact your guides more frequently in a state where you've created your beautiful happy place. And then you say, and you invite your guide in and say, I'd like to talk to you. Let's discuss this. And like I said, a lot of times it feels like your imagination, but that's where all that midbrain is going crazy. And it's like, oh, let's all talk together at the same time. So when you're in the midst of that and you're trying to remember, sometimes it will actually feel like you're observing yourself within the experience.
Yes, exactly.
Almost like watching yourself within the experience. Is that where I'm going with this? Is this correct?
Yeah. Out of body, come out of body. I'm traveling, but I'm watching myself do whatever I'm doing and like trying to record it or something.
Yeah. So our memory is a fantastic little tool that sometimes likes to work better than others. So the good news is know that all of that information is being withheld, whether you consciously remember it or not. Okay. Consciously, we're going to take forward the major aspects of that situation. So we will take forward into our conscious mind the major points in which we were supposed to remember. Okay. Our subconscious mind will still remember all of it. So we haven't lost any of the information. So when you are having a dream like that, and you're having, like, say, an out-of-body experience, and you're trying to record everything because you're like desperately trying to hold on to every detail, when you come out of that state, the dominant details will still maintain them in their conscious mind. Those are the things. That's why I always tell people, I'm like, write it down as fast as you can.
Yeah.
Because if you can remember the dominant portions of it, then you can have some fun with it and go back into the memory. Kind of like that little experiment we did. You know, I was like, so go back into the memory of it. So maybe go into like the deprivation meditation would be a perfect place for you to access that, where you can go into that deprivation meditation, go back into that memory. So you have no distractions. That's the point behind that. And you can actually start to you're in more of a alpha theta state. So you will remember more of the details. Okay. So even though you aren't still currently in the live experience of it, you can still go back and pull those details with it.
Yeah, that's really helpful.
Use that deprivation meditation. Plus, I don't know about you guys, but how many of you have had flying dreams?
Oh yeah, so good.
Oh, who doesn't love a flying dream, right? And then you come back in your body and you get all mad. You're like, I'm pissed because I'm stuck on the ground. And so, I mean, those are some of those experiences where when you're in the middle of the experience, yes, you want to be observant. Yes, you want to be able to have access to that memory, correct? However, you also want to allow your soul, allow your energy to have fun in that experience, okay? So the whole reason you're flying is because clearly you needed to have a moment of freedom and peace, okay? And so that's why I'm like, enjoy the experience, take the major details back out with you. And then maybe if you want to go revisit it, go revisit it. You know, then you can pull more details and see what really happened in the situation. So remember this, I will share one more little tidbit on this. The less you stress about these things, the more fluid the memories and the experiences and the messages will be. Stress is not what we're trying to accomplish. If anything, we're trying to do the exact opposite. The more you go through this class, you should actually be able to learn how to relax more. And so whenever we throw stress into a situation, our energy kind of goes like this, which is bad. Because what does that do? It blocks us up. How many of you have tried to read for someone already? And you don't have to admit to it, because like I said, I'd prefer you get to the end of the class before you do this. But those of you who have tried to do that, how many of you will have a fluid message for someone? That person gets all excited and then you shut down, because then now you're all nervous because they're asking you more information. So that's where you want to breathe through it. Remember, the more relaxed you are, the clearer your state of mind is, the more fluid the messages are. So relaxing actually makes it easier, and it makes it easier to relax. It's a win-win. Okay. So at least that's one more little tidbit I could throw in there. Vanessa, it looks like you've had your hand up for a little while. What's your question?
Yeah, it's going back to when you were talking about the connecting with people, like with the massage therapists and stuff.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned, you know, to have permission. I had a question on that. Like let's say that for some reason you just automatically connect with somebody and you're not even trying, kind of like when you walk into somewhere with free Wi-Fi and magically you're connected.
Yeah.
But what if like you're like, I know this person doesn't believe in this, or they're a sleeper, or they're purposefully not wanting to tap into this kind of stuff, but whoever is on their energetic side is like, nope, you need to know this, you need to know this now, and you're just going to listen. And they might just be telling you things that you're like, that's none of my business because the physical person didn't give me this permission. And like, what do you do with that if like they're, because obviously their guides or whoever's with them is going to know more about their situation than we as a human are. So it's like, how do you deal with persistent guides that are like, nope, this is important and you're going to listen to me?
So this will happen to everybody. If you come into contact with someone, you're going to get messages. The more you're open, remember, once we open that door, it's really hard to close it. So learning how to handle those situations is excellent. So it's a great question. So when you are in the midst of somebody who is not asking you to read for them, this is so there's two different kinds of readings, and we'll cover this a little bit later. But you know, there's the people that say, I'm coming into a reading, I want to schedule with you. And then there's the people that we call those spontaneous readings. So you handle them differently, much differently. So if you're in the midst of somebody and you're working on them because you're doing, you know, body work, and you're going to come into contact with their energy, you may receive an insane amount of messages, but that's not what they're there for. They are not there to see you for those messages. If those messages help you to do your job better, to help them more, then you take those messages and you work with the person doing the job that you're there to do, so that you can enhance their experience. If you guys get to talking and they happen to know that, you know, I call it woo-woo. So if they happen to know that, and they know you well enough to say, hey, did you pick anything up off of me? Or you have a session available that says you can either schedule a massage or you can schedule a message massage, you know, that's a different dynamic. They are saying, yes, I want messages. So they are already inviting that in, and they're already giving you permission if they schedule something like that. So you want to make sure that you're not sharing messages with somebody who is not there to receive them. If those messages come through to help that person, then you want to be able to help them doing the best job that you can do with what they're there for. There's boundaries in this too, because you're going to pick things up off of a lot of people. You're going to have to learn how to remember how I said, just say no. You can say no, this is not an appropriate time. If you still pick up on messages, then you need to clear yourself. You don't want to form an attachment with a client that is not invited. Okay. And honestly, you don't really want a lot of attachments. So that's why I always suggest clearing. I mean, I absolutely love my clients. I am blessed to have some of the best clients on the planet, but do I want to carry their stuff with me most of the time? No, because we have our own lives to deal with, and we have the lessons we're supposed to pick up on. So trust your life path too. Okay. And don't carry theirs with you. All right. So if you're in a situation with that, you will have to kind of fight some urges, because the more that you ascend, the more your urge to help the world is going to ascend too. You're like, I want to reach out and hug everybody. Can you do that? You really can't. You have to ask permission. You know what I mean? So yes. Or if it's like a BFF and they're just kind of a sleeper and you want to just slide something in there to test the waters, you can kind of say, okay, well, hey, how are things going with your dad? You're not really reading for them, but if something pops up, maybe it's just spur the question, how's your dad doing? For example, just kind of like with Rebecca's situation where, I think it was Rebecca, you were working with somebody in the green leaves in the hospital bed, right?
Yeah.
And so, same dynamic. If you're in that situation and you know that this person knows who you are and you're comfortable with them, and you can ask them, hey, I kind of picked up on some things. Do you want to know what it is? You can do that, because then they're still giving you permission. It's like I said, it's really hard not to read people once you know what you're doing. Plus, when you're really excited about what you're doing, it's hard not to want to share it with everybody, because you're like, I have this great ability. I want to tell you everything. You can't do that. It's just not currently accepted in society at the moment. Who knows? Maybe that'll change in the next 10 years. But, until that is currently accepted, then, there's a little tiptoeing that kind of comes with this, because you don't want to freak people out. It's kind of like telling somebody that you're Superman and they're like, what? You can fly, sure. And then you show them that you can fly and then they're really freaked out, right? So it's kind of like that. So, all right. So does anybody else have any last minute questions? I could do one more. We're kind of a little bit over, but I can take one more if anybody has a question. And otherwise, I will have this recorded. So I will post the class under number 5, and then I will add a new section that's not in there. So it'll take me a little bit longer to get the Q&A up, but I will get that posted separately so that you guys can go back and review any of the questions and answers that we kind of covered in the Q&A. And just remember, keep notes, keep questions written down over the next several classes. We will go through a lot more information than we've covered so far. So write down your questions. Keep them handy. Hopefully, at the end of the classes, we'll have a little time, but most of the next few classes are going to be very slam packed. So I don't know how much time we'll have for questions. We will have another live Q&A at the end of lesson 10. So just look forward to that, because this is really fun. Thank you guys. And I will get this posted, like I said, hopefully in the next 24 hours or so. Might be a little extra work on this one. So I will email everybody and I will post it on the Facebook group as soon as it's ready to go. All right. So thank you guys for coming today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I will see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.